Hey, it's Brooke and Jeffrey in the morning.
You can scroll it later, or better, you can listen live to Brooke and Jeffrey every weekday morning. Big fun, real moments, the laughs that make your day. Your station, your city, right now. That's called radio. In Seattle, that's called Moving 92.5.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, the show that is all about building a better life. And frankly, that's what we're all trying to do every single day, right? Well, maybe not as intentionally as we could. And so that's why every week for 1 hour, we get together and talk about one way in which we can build a better life. And we hope that it resonates with you. By we, I mean myself, JDK Winnikin, and along for the ride, once again, my friend, my colleague, my fellow conversationalist, and so many things to so many people. It is Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley.
Well, hello.
How are you?
Doing great.
Good.
How are you?
I am doing well. I am excited to be here having a conversation with you. It's really fun. We get to sit in the studio and kind of see where all this stuff goes, right?
Yes.
I mean, just to let listeners know, if you're new, we come in, we know generally what we want to talk about most of the time. Every once in a while, we surprise each other with that. But it's always interesting where it goes, right? Just like any good conversation, right? It goes to places you aren't expecting. So, all right. So speaking of today's topic, Ashley.
Yes.
This one is on you to talk about today, to introduce. And I think it's a really good one. And hopefully all of you out there listening will appreciate this one as well, because it got me thinking about something in a little bit of a different way. And we're going to explore that today. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, thanks for that introduction. It did come up for myself not too long ago. I was reading something online and it just had me start pondering and thinking, and it was about like friendships and relationships and whatnot in the modern day, and how they're becoming more and more of like a merger and acquisition of what can I get out of this person, or what value do they bring to my life, instead of just the usual pure curiosity of I want to get to know this person better, or I want to spend time with this person. And just how it is so common nowadays. And I read this thing and I was like, is that really true? And I spent some time considering it. And then actually with that idea in mind, after just like looking at other things online and just how people have interacted and whatnot nowadays, and in the conversations I hear, it seems so true. It was shocking and a little bit disappointing that seems to be how it is nowadays.
So kind of like talking about relationships the way we might talk about a business merger?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like we're looking at them, and you know, it's one thing we've always talked about like when you have your own moral code and your values, and you want to find people that align with that and you with them, right? But in this regard, it's like looking at somebody like, oh, well, how will they benefit my life? Like, what do they bring to the table to add to what I'm already doing? And if they don't bring anything, they're not worthy.
Right. Or if they don't bring this specific set of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the image that comes to mind is like, how do you optimize the performance of blank, like your computer? How do you optimize the performance of your body? How, almost like it's treating a relationship like a commodity, like a product. Like, what can I get for this? I mean, in some ways, you said something to me when we first talked about it. It's like the idea of almost like networking, like the goals of networking. What can I get from this business relationship? I've met this person. What can they provide me? Can they give me a good lead somewhere? Can they bring me business? Right. Right. Are our business interests aligned? That's an interesting idea.
I mean, if this is a networking thing, then that's totally okay.
That's one
and
thing,
correct.
right.
That's right in the vein of where it should be. But I think people are so quick to pick up and drop people that the willingness to really invest is not there. And we've talked before how people, there's such a need right now for human connection and closeness that is a huge void.
Curiosity.
And it's getting seemingly worse.
Yeah.
And people are so unattached and so disconnected. And yet then they're the same ones saying like that they want to grow a connection and they want to be close to people. And I'm like, you have like 5 feet of glass between you and the other person. And you act like it. There's not really, but you act like it.
Yeah.
You give this illusion that you're close because you can see each other, but you're nowhere near each other.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that because, you see the social media advice online for how relationships are supposed to go. And, people give the big, long checklist, if they do this, 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 and this. It's like,
the red flags and the green flags.
Right. And all those things, it's not that there's necessarily some things with that aren't right or are right, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that's how they go. But one thing I'm struck by is people will be listing these things out and I'm watching them get more and more closed off. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you're putting all this out there. Are you really making it possible for somebody to get to know you? And are you curious enough to actually get to know them? Or are you just meeting people and getting to know them? Are you evaluating them for a preconceived set of ideas of how they're supposed to fit into your life? Or are you generally interested in getting to know who this person is? I think that's a huge difference between curiosity of who this person is and evaluating them around some standard. Now, of course, even if you meet someone and you're being very curious about them, you are going to evaluate at some point whether or not they are somebody you're interested in for a friendship or romantically, or you date for a while and maybe it's not going to work, and you do have to evaluate.
Right.
But you're talking about almost like a preconceived set of things rather than seeing the other person. And that disappointed you.
Yeah, it did. Because I feel like you miss so much when you do that. And also, of course, this would be my take, but I'm like, oh, you're going to look at other people through that lens, but do you ever look at yourself through that lens?
What do I bring to the table? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You have these high expectations and standards of what you're looking for in other people, but it's like, would they, if you're both being measured by that same set of rules, like where would you measure up to that? It's great for everyone to want a 10, but if you aren't trying to become a 10 also, well, what makes you think you're worthy of having a 10?
Yeah, but see, Ashley, that's the you're talking about that's the hard stuff. That's
the fun stuff
yeah.
for me to talk about.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, what do they bring to the table? Are we aligned? I've actually heard things like, what's the ROI of this relationship? Right? Do we collaborate well? Again, that's kind of an antiseptic kind of.
Do we collaborate well?
I've heard this.
Again, that sounds like a brand deal.
Exactly. And
sponsorship,
and the
not
thing, well,
relationship.
And this is the thing that immediately comes to mind. If you are approaching people that way and they know they're being approached that way, you aren't going to be getting what you're looking for, that authenticity, because suddenly everybody's performing. Right?
Yeah.
Right. I know that, we live in an online dating world, right? And I don't do a lot of that. Right. And yet what's interesting is that evaluation process, you can almost see it laid out there when you look at a lot of people's profiles, right? I expect this, 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 and this, or I'm looking for this, 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 and this. And let's find out if we're this, 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 and this. This type of person, no need to apply. This type of person, I encourage you to apply. I see this.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of clients who do this. Or see this or are online dating, and they're like, oh man, I feel like I have to run a gauntlet the second I meet this person, where I'm like, how am I fitting into this preconceived notion of what it is that they think they need?
It's like dating has become just an interview process,
right?
Which you would think people would be really great at interviews if they're out there online dating.
Right.
Don't you practice all the time?
Yeah. We'll get back to you in a few days when we've made our choice.
Yeah. Let me look through the rest of the resumes.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and to a certain degree, I mean, it sounds to me like what you're disappointed by, Ashley, is that this is kind of a cultural shift, at least in terms of as we see it through social media, for example, right? And even popular media. We do live in an app-based culture. Yeah. Not only is everything in short bursts that we've talked about many times, but so much of this is, here's what's wrong with A, here's what's right with B, here's the way to do better at A, B, and C, and here's the way to avoid the worst things, which is D, E, and F. Right? It's like a whole series of warning signs, to-do projects, simple ways. Here's the ways to know this. Here's the top 15 ways such and such is happening. And everybody's frantically trying to get that out there. And we're just inundated with this stuff. And it's so image conscious, right? Everything is image conscious. How somebody comes across seemingly is a lot more important than how someone really is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and that judging somebody by what you see on their cover takes mere moments, very quick.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't feel like it's wasting your time, right? Getting to know somebody, well, that's such an investment that takes time and energy and effort and emotion and this and that. And if people aren't willing to do that, then they're always going to default to like what is quick. You know, you live in this like the microwave society, right?
Yeah.
Where you just want something fast and enough.
Right.
Satisfactory enough.
And we want a million choices.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think you think about that with app culture, you know, and dating apps in particular, right?
Yeah.
It's literally wall after wall of people, of images. And there's something to me really gross about the whole swipe left, swipe right thing.
It's like, when did people become like a buffet?
Exactly.
That's really how it feels. And I definitely did not mean for this topic to go into like dating specific. However,
the trash,
it just feels like relationships in any particular manner that you want to apply it to feels just like a buffet. What am I going to get out of you and how long do I want you on my plate before I set you aside and I go for another serving somewhere else?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's that illusion that comes through all of that of there's always more.
Yeah.
Right. And so why should I invest in this, or how long do I take to get to know this person when there's so many other options out there?
Oh, yeah.
And the danger of that, of course, is that we get drawn in by newness and newness only. And as soon as the newness dries up or wears off, as soon as that wears off, suddenly it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. There's no more butterflies.
Yeah.
That must mean we don't have a good connection and we don't like each other anymore.
Right. Exactly. Or something's wrong, or it's we're not aligned. I hear that a lot. And believe me, we talk a lot on this show about actual alignment with values, right?
But, you know, getting there takes time.
It does.
It takes investment. And, you know, you get what you give. And if you're not willing to give and to actually spend time getting to know people without expectation, and, you know, like in the dating sense, we always have heard it's better to date a friend, right? Like, or like be friends first type of thing, because in that instance, you naturally are getting to know somebody and you see them for who they are without a lot of judgment and no expectation. And you're just enjoying the company of said person. And then at one point you're like, oh, they're actually pretty cool. And I've never considered them to be something more. But that pure, unique curiosity in the beginning as a friend, just when you're like in a group of people getting to know each other, if we led with a lot more of that in business and friendship and with our coworkers and our partners, short term, or if you've been with them for like years and years and years, I feel like there would be so much more fruit born out of it.
There would, and it would be a lot more quality and a good deal of quantity, right, depending on what it is. And the one prerequisite that you said earlier that I was thinking about the entire time you were making that list was, it starts with, what are you going to give? You have to know what you have to give, which means you have to know what you're about.
That's true.
And, you know, so all the things we talked about, has to start with ourselves. And that's why I thought this was such a great topic to be talking about today, because like everything else, everything comes back to how we are framing it, how we are looking at it, how we are choosing to view it, to a certain degree, how we're choosing to feel about it. We have more choices over our feelings than I think we like to realize. And if you're brand new to this show and that sounds crazy to you, we have 117 other episodes that dig into a lot of this different stuff. Chances are we've talked about a lot of these things before, and you can go listen to what we've said then. But I think that's, to me, what is so powerful about this, because what you are criticizing is essentially a fundamental assumption that people have was, I know what I'm about already, and everything has to fit me. When the fact is, when we take a step back, and if we can be really honest with ourselves, we see that every relationship we have involves us getting outside of ourselves to a certain degree and growing towards someone else. That's what real connection is. Right? Connection isn't this checklist of like, okay, this person has this, and this. And I've decided on the basis of my previous experience, on the basis of what I've seen online 100 times, on the basis of previous traumas in my life, whatever it might be, that this is what needs to be fit. And if they fit all of that, then everything's okay, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not the case. People aren't clothes. Like, you don't mix and match all these different things together. And here's the perfect outfit and everything looks great. It just doesn't work that way. That's why these things are a lot harder than that. And yet we live in this immediate gratification, overwhelming saturation of visuals and ideas and thoughts and accusations that I think people have a really hard time being able to just slow down and just say, okay, this is me. All of that other stuff is noise. Mm-hmm. This is me. I have to know what I'm about. And then let me start thinking about who's this other person across from me on their own terms.
Sure.
That to me is where the challenge is.
I would concur with all of that.
Okay. Yeah, boy.
I mean,
wound up on this one.
Yeah, and here I thought this was my topic.
Well, we both are. You're already wound up.
No.
You were going for a while there. I was listening.
Well, it's, I feel very strongly that it is so important to take ownership of you.
Yes.
And if you were, I feel like people would have a really hard time if they had to sit down and basically write like a ad campaign about themselves. What are you about? Not just, this is my job, this is my title, this is my degree. Like, no, those things might explain something about you, but that doesn't really describe who you are.
Right.
And if you don't even know how to describe who you are, then how in the world do you think you know what would be a good fit for you?
Right.
On the other side, and what would be a good addition in your life, and how can you be a good addition to somebody else?
Yeah. Absolutely.
In a meshy type of way.
Yeah, that's well said. And, and that allows for the room that we all need to have to really discover new things about people that you're in relationship with.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah, it is. And then they get to discover new things about themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. We have this assumption that we're meeting people who are as fully formed as they're ever going to be. Mm-hmm. And they need to show up the most polished, the best version of themselves, literally all the time, in order for them to be acceptable to one.
Isn't that like one of the biggest lies of marriage?
Yes.
You're going to be the same person I married X amount of years ago, and you are never supposed to change.
That's right. That's right. And, the other one with marriage is, okay, we did the hard part by getting here. The rest takes care of itself, right?
Mm-hmm. We just kick back and relax.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, then we're off to a roaring start here. Okay, so when we come back on Staying Power, we'll dig more into a lot of the different elements that we think are behind this, even though we've tapped on a number of them so far. We will also, when we come back from break, do our weekly segment, which this week is 2 Minutes of Triumph. So you want to stick around for that. So glad you're along with us today here on Staying Power. Stick around. See you in a minute. On Staying Power, we talk a lot about building a better life.
And a big part of that is the space you live in every day.
That's why we're excited to partner with Pars Revive Renovation, helping homeowners across the East Side and Puget Sound create spaces that truly reflect who they are.
Whether it's a kitchen, bathroom, or full home renovation, Pars Revive focuses on thoughtful design, quality craftsmanship, and your unique vision.
Because just like personal growth, your home should evolve with you.
To learn more, visit parsrenovation.com. That's PARS renovation.com, and start building a space that supports the life you want to live.
Don't ask me to talk.
There's a lot of talk out there. Political talk, sports talk, girl talk, trash talk, and so on. But there's only one, Don't Ask Me to Talk, helmed by conversational off-roaders and podcast pals Eric Ryder and Stacy Heller. They follow every tangent they encounter, from cultural blind spots to their infamous weekly Wheelo topics. Listen wherever you listen to your fave podcasts. Subscribe and share too. Or tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. or Tuesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW.
Tell your friends about Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
We are talking about how people are not products or something like that. Just a different way of looking at relationships based on something Ashley was noticing just in her goings on online and in life recently. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Thank you so much for joining us. But before we move on to that, it is time for our weekly segment where Ashley and I each take 2 minutes to talk about something that's happened in our week, how we responded to it, what we've learned from it, all in the name of vulnerability, connection, curiosity, all the things that we need to have in order to build a better life. So without further ado, here we go. 2 minutes of triumph. That's a triumphal. All right.
Oh, that's cute.
Ashley, what you got?
Okay. I had something really exciting happen the other day. I reconnected with somebody that I went to college with, and it was like a really odd, just, responding to each other on social media. And then I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I found out that they've listened to some of our shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
I had no idea.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not to say they're a subscriber. I don't think they subscribe, but they had said that they've listened to some of our episodes, which I thought was so cool because this is somebody I haven't spoken to in like years.
Oh, wow.
And I was just very complimented by that. It really meant a lot to know that you just never know who's listening, and it's really exciting for us to have listeners. So I thought it was cool.
That is great.
Made
that
my
is
day.
great. That is great. And so they had they listened recently before they?
They had said it had been a little bit since they used to listen. They listened to some stuff, and then it had been a little bit since they had. So who knows? They might start listening again. But I thought it was really cool.
Nice.
No
Excellent.
idea.
That always feels good.
Yeah.
That always feels good. Mine has to do with work. Listeners know that I started a new job in the health insurance industry recently, and I'm really enjoying it. And yet, man, learning a new anything is tough. In this industry, there's a whole language to it. There's a whole series of practices. There's so many things. And like any new job, you kind of feel like you're drinking from the fire hose at the beginning, just trying to make sense of it. This week, though, I think I finally figured out how I can best show up in the environment that I'm in a way where I feel like I'm bringing my best to the table and I'm not getting swept up in the energy of my different coworkers in the office, who are all great. I enjoy all of them. But I can find it really easily to be affected by the energy that's around me. Sometimes I have to be careful with it. And so finding my own way to kind of stay who I am, right? I tend to be very calm. I tend to be very focused on problem solving, all those things, and yet also give myself a break, learn how to learn, let myself make mistakes, let myself not be an expert, let myself, learn this stuff along the way. And once again, Ashley is laughing for no discernible reason unless
You're explaining this. I'm like, you're like the pet rock of the office. It's great.
the pet rock of the office. Wow. And here's the thing. This woman genuinely cares about me, and she called me a pet rock. That's fantastic.
And then you went on to explain more about yourself, and I'm like, okay, he's not a pet rock. But it was the first thing you're like, I stay grounded, and I'm like, okay, you hold down the fort. Okay. Anyways, moving on.
Ashley is not the pet rock in her
No.
business. Yeah. She's the, I don't know, what are you, the spinning top?
Oh, I think I'm the ringmaster.
The ring.
100%. That is my circus, and those are my monkeys.
Those are your monkeys.
Whatever that phrase is.
Gotcha. That's all. Anyway, it just felt good to feel like I found like how I can best show up in that job, even though there's a lot of newness, a lot of, I won't call it anxiety, but I want to do well, right?
Of
And I want to
course.
show up well, and I want to make things easier for my coworkers. I have a tendency to want to do too much too fast. And so to experience being like, this is how I can do things and do it well, makes it easier to get up and do it every single day.
Sure.
So that was the big thing. All right. So pet rock. Okay. I'm not letting that one go. All right. So Ashley, kind of getting back to this, which we're talking about relationships in general. I know we've talked a lot about dating and things like that. And we've, this idea that somehow in this drive, this understandable drive, we want to have relationships that are obviously not abusive, not traumatic, not difficult, not dead end, all those things, all very good, important things. We can easily, if we're not careful, lose the ability to actually connect with people who wouldn't do all those things, because we build up these expectations or build up almost like this set of criteria. It's list building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of things. And okay, and they they reach 5 of these, but not 10 of these, which means they're getting 50%. And in school, 50% was an F. So they fail,
Yeah.
right?
That's an
That
interesting
type of thing.
perspective.
I think we all can take a look at how we evaluate what makes somebody quote unquote worthwhile or successful in our life. And we're talking about something that in the environment that we live in, it encourages comparison, filtering, this idea that everything has to be optimized. And if we're not careful, we compare everything, right? We compare everyone to everything. And we might be meeting somebody and then we see something online or we see somebody else or whatever. And we go, okay, well, I don't have that. This isn't good enough, right? The fear of missing out on the better option. People are not meant to be evaluated that way. They're meant to be experienced, right? And that's not to say those other things don't matter. Like you want to watch out for the things that are red flags right away. Right? You do want to pay attention to that. But the product mindset, I think, is what gets dangerous about this. So when people feel like they're having to perform, as we talked about, they perform instead of showing up. And instead of revealing things, they get very selective in what they present. Right? What's that called? Curating.
Yeah.
Got to curate this.
Curate your response so you fit the bill of what they're looking for.
Right. And I remember an old Chris Rock routine from years ago where he said on a first date, you're not actually meeting that person, you're meeting their representative. That's curation.
That's so funny.
Who are the best people that you can put forward. Yeah. So, yeah, and I think so how, Ashley, then, how do we become better at accepting some realities about what experiencing people are like? And this is the part where it gets kind of, people go, oh, this isn't as cool. Because if you think about it, real relationships involve miscommunication, awkwardness, those growth edges where things don't go well, there's misunderstandings, there's people get irritated, right? Have to repair things. That's human experience. Experiencing people making mistakes, right? Or yourself making a mistake and having to own it or atone for it or acknowledge it. The experience of being forgiven or not being forgiven. The experience of vulnerability involves, something might not work, right? Something might not work. That's the mindset, that mindset of a product doesn't allow for that, right? And so many people, from Brene Brown to Esther Perel and so many others, have pointed out time and time again, that's the number one reason why we live in an era where people are so damn lonely all the time. Because they're closing themselves off by really kind of getting these things out of order. That's my sense. What comes up for you with all that?
I would say, to me, it feels like people have muted their curiosity. Very much.
Put it.
Because when you think about back in the earlier days before we had all of our technology and all of our various forms of communication, and we only had limited options. You had in person, you had letter writing, you had maybe the telephone type of thing, but people put in so much more effort because they had to, but they wanted to. Yeah. Because they had such a strong sense of curiosity to get to know somebody else. They weren't, I'm going to assume, obviously I was not around at that point of time, like as far back as I'm speaking about, but I would imagine people were more willing to have the awkwardness and to dive into those conversations that could be considered the growth edges and the repair and whatnot, because they had no other option. They couldn't just ghost you and opt out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were more willing to do it, but they were certainly confronted with it a lot more often.
Yeah.
Put in a position where they had to make a choice.
Yes.
So much of what we're talking about is people just avoiding that.
They just avoid
entirely.
it. Yes. And they just shut things off. And I mean, I would challenge or question our listeners, or, even yourself. Like, when was the last time that you stayed up an atrocious amount of time talking on the phone with somebody, and it wasn't about, okay, what are we going to build tomorrow, and what's going to be our to-do list, and what's our 5-year plan, and, all these calculated, very heavy, detail-oriented things, where instead it was just a fun conversation, shooting the breeze and like learning about each other. Like that youthful, playful, curious, driven type of connection is where people thrive.
Yep.
We are designed to adapt, to move and to grow and to keep doing. And I see so much now people have completely shut that off. And then they wonder why they feel so out of sorts with themselves all the time. I'm like, you are completely denying your design.
It's a really good way to put it. And then what it ends up doing, almost perversely, is that anxiety drives them to create that list so they can stop feeling that anxiety.
Right.
As if somehow that's going to fix it, right? That phenomenon you talked about is what I call the bubble. When you enter into the bubble with somebody in a conversation on the phone, in person, or whatever, where time ceases to matter. And so does the rest of the outside world, right? Other people are going about their business. There's other things going on. And then suddenly time goes by and it's just been the two of you in that connected space. And when you pop out of it, somebody usually goes, oh my God, look at the time, right? Holy cow, we've been talking for so and so long.
Yeah, I got to get up in 4 hours.
Actually, interesting background story, listeners. The first time Ashley and I met each other, that happened, right?
Yes, it did.
We met for what was supposed to be a 1 hour business networking meeting and turned into what, 5
hours?
5 hours of sitting eating nachos. I think
we ate other things too.
Other things besides nachos.
But it started off at like happy hour time, right?
Yeah.
And then we're just
we just
chatting and kept going. We're like, oh yeah, let's order dinner. Like happy hour wasn't enough. And then next thing I know, and I'm like, it's like 8 o'clock.
I gotta go. You had to go to a
I
concert.
need to go to a concert. Yeah.
And since I'm a pet rock, I had to go home and go to bed. Okay? But nevertheless.
But interestingly enough, that's how you and I both approached that evening.
Yep. Curiosity.
Just curious about, and that was the whole point. We were supposed to get together and like get to know each other and our business and whatnot.
Yeah.
And there was the business influence of it.
Yeah.
But you and I, we touched on that. But I remember in those 5 hours, our conversation just flowed naturally and it went in so many different places.
Yeah.
And it was great. And obviously, look where we're at now.
Sure.
And I don't have many connections where I can do that with, honestly. I think sometimes people don't allow enough time in their life to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it does take time.
Totally. And I get people are like, well, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking to somebody if it's not going to mean something. It doesn't matter. But I'm like, well, you would have an innate feeling of like, I want more of this. This person is like drinking gold. I want more of this. This is great.
Yeah.
This is so fun. This is so exciting. This makes me feel excited about life.
Right.
This is bringing a side of myself out that I truly enjoy and I don't get to meet very often.
Right. Right. And then building off of that, interestingly enough, and kind of keeping Ashley's and my relationship at the center here as an example, that's all well and good to start, and that builds a good connection, builds a good foundation. But we've also experienced that the way for a relationship to grow is through tension.
Which
right?
we've had.
And not avoidance. That's
Yeah.
the thing. So much of these things that you're talking about almost feel like the idea is we need to get all that so we can avoid difficulty, so we can reduce tension. I understand wanting to avoid violence and abuse and all of that. Yes. But healthy relationships grow in the midst of difficulty. They really do. And then repair. And learning from that and growing from that, right? The people that we meet are not these complete packages that we spend however long that we have them in our life, learning all those pieces as if they're coming from an already complete whole. We're all dynamic. We all change. We all make decisions. We all have things happen to us that change us. We have new ideas that come about, right? New experiences, losses, gains, successes, failures, all of which can reshape us really, really quickly. The relationship dynamic has to be more about, is this a person I want to ride alongside because of what they bring in to the situation when we are riding alongside, whatever that looks like. And there's got to be at least some willingness for some adventure, for some uncertainty, for some risk, right? And that just seems so much, and that's another part of the world we live in. Everybody's so risk averse, right?
Yes.
So risk
Yes.
averse, particularly when it comes to this. Because I think people are so dreadfully lonely and desperate for connection that they want to get all the painful stuff that seems to be in the way that's driving them. They want that to go away as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully somehow some almost like alchemy, like straw becomes gold, like just because it's well-intentioned, that leads to the wreckage of relationships in the end, I think.
I would completely agree with that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's such a different way of looking at it. And, and even some of the people we've talked about, Brene Brown, Esther Perel, they talk about this all the time. This is what is required in relationships: emotional exposure, uncertainty, a choice to invest. And yeah, that does mean if you're going to invest in this thing, you may not have enough to invest in the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's choices, right? If you want to develop intimacy, trust, depth, there has to be all of that, right? And I sense, because that's kind of how you roll, that's why you felt so disappointed with all these
Perhaps.
things. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Not bad for a pet rock, huh?
You know what? It's a really impressive pet rock. It's very brainy for a rock.
Very, very brightly painted. Wowie. Anyway, okay.
Oh my.
All right, let's go ahead and take our second break here on Staying Power. When we come back, as we always do in the last segment of our show, we'll talk about some practical things that maybe you can start trying out in your daily life right away that might be able to help, if nothing else, reveal some things to you about you and what you might be bringing to the table in your relationship. We'll be right back on Staying Power.
If you've been thinking about upgrading your home, this might be your sign.
We're proud to be sponsored by Pars Revive Renovation, serving Bellevue, the East Side, and the greater Puget Sound.
They specialize in turning everyday spaces into something functional, beautiful, and tailored to you.
From kitchens and bathrooms to full renovations, they bring the same level of care and attention to detail that we talk about here on Staying Power.
Because your environment matters. It shapes how you feel, think, and live.
Check them out at parsrenovation.com. That's PARS renovation.com, and see what's possible for your home.
Hey, JD, do you want to have a better life?
Yeah, doesn't everybody?
Yes, we do. How do I go about doing that?
A good place to start would be listening to our new show, Staying Power.
What's it about?
It's about all the ways we can overcome the challenges that we sometimes put in front of ourselves to live a better life.
Where can I find it?
You can listen to it on 1150 AM KKNW every Wednesday at 4 p.m. and Fridays at 9 a.m. or wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's do this together every week on Staying Power.
Want to be part of the tapestry of talk on 1150 KKNW? Check out the Be a Star section on 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hi.
I know I kind of came barreling in from
Yeah,
the break.
wow.
Like I came running in out from outside. Anyway, here I am. Okay, Ashley, let's talk about some practical things people can do to kind of connect with the things that we were talking about. Maybe take a good look and see if maybe they're doing some list building and some product management and putting people in a position where they have to perform instead of just show up.
Okay.
So I figure we have a number of things we've written down. So I think we could just kind of ping pong these back and forth. So do you want to go ahead and start?
Oh, sure. I would say in the beginning, a good question to ask yourself is, instead of looking at it like, are they right for me? Are they a good fit for me? Do they fit the bill and check all the boxes? Is like, who are they really? Who are they? And, maybe set your list aside, because maybe there's a lot of attributes this person has that you didn't even think to write down. And then maybe take somebody who you think is somebody you think really highly of. And if you had to turn them into a checklist, what would you write down as their checklist? Just an interesting thought. But, try and look at people for who they are. All the fun and the not so fun parts, because that makes them. I'm great because I have problems, and I'm great because I have positivity about myself. Same with you. And that's what makes people who they are. And that's so much to appreciate.
I like that. It gets us out of the realm of thinking we can anticipate every single thing that it is that we might want and need out of a relationship.
Isn't that what's fun about people, is you can't anticipate them?
Exactly. Yeah. I like that curiosity too, because then you're starting to see the person for who they are. And interestingly enough, gives you more to work with in deciding, is this worth sticking with? Yeah. one that is important for me, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, we have to allow for messy middle stages. I would encourage everybody to get more familiar with awkward,
Get more messy.
yeah, awkward conversations, moments where there's miscommunication or misalignment, learning each other's rhythms, learning the way people do things. Like I have some friends. I'm actually one of these people. I didn't realize I was one of these people, but I have some friends who don't like talking on the phone very much. They don't. They'd rather meet in person, or they'd rather text until you can do that, or they want to see your face, right? So maybe they'll FaceTime instead. And I have others that just love it, right? Always want to communicate, right? Always want to talk, always like that. Not everybody's that way. And yet that doesn't mean that because a person, if you're one of those people who wants to talk and, go back and forth all the time and the other person doesn't, that doesn't mean they like you less, right? It just means they might do things differently. That doing things differently can be a really important and insightful growth period where you're like, oh, okay, this person doesn't do this the way that I do it, but I don't have to then say, okay, because if I was doing that, I would feel this way and this way. That's how they feel, right? It lets them be separate, right? It lets them be unique. So allowing messy middle stages are actually really important.
I like that. I was actually going to say, you mentioned FaceTime, that I've never really been a big FaceTimer, but as of recently, every once in a while I will FaceTime, and I think it's actually fantastic because you have to focus in on the screen of the person you're talking to. And at least for me, in my experiences, the people are so much less likely to be checking their Apple Watch or scrolling on their phone or doing other things because they're looking at the screen of the person they're talking to. And I'm huge about, like, when I'm talking to you, I want your attention. I want to know that you're listening.
Oh, yes. Yes, you are.
Very much. And so I started doing FaceTime, and I'm like, this is awesome. And I don't know why I haven't done this before, but I agree with you that it's a really good way of building connection.
It is. It is.
But
it is one of those areas where technology can really help, I think. Yeah.
I would agree.
Okay.
Another thing I would say, kind of like the checklist we already talked about, like drop the checklist and the unrealistic expectations. It's good to have a baseline of what you think is healthy and safe and okay. But outside of that, allow for things to be as they are. Allow yourself to be impressed. Allow yourself to be surprised. Don't try to calculate what you think you know about all these people, and don't put them in a box because you're like, oh, well, they do this, so then obviously that means they do this and this and this. Maybe that's not true, but you wouldn't know unless you just allowed them to be and stop trying to make cookie cutter cookies out of the dough of who they are. Just let them be and learn about them, and don't put these little filters on there. And there are so many different things out there nowadays, and I would totally recommend people to do this. Either get Esther Perel's game that we've played on here before.
Oh, yes. Where shall we begin?
Where shall we begin? Or, you can look up online of like really great, fun questions, or there's games that you can buy that are just like question prompting. That it's like not the basic of like, okay, so what do you do for work? And where did you grow up? And, like the boring crap, but like the really fun, inspiring things. Like I had one as an example the other day that came to mind that I'm like, if I were to talk to somebody, I would ask them this question, like, what is the one food item that no matter where you saw it on the menu, if it's on the menu, you would always order it?
Oh.
Like, what a random question. But it's not, what's your favorite food? It's just like, if that food item is on the menu ever, you'll always order it. What is it?
Oh, man, that's interesting.
Just put like fun things like that. It builds connection.
It does.
And it creates stories.
My quick answer to that is it's not so much the food item, but inevitably for me, it's always the thing that's most expensive is what sounds best. Inevitably. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, it's
Okay.
seemingly always, it's kind of a running joke among people who know me. Is like, what's JD going to order? Well, what's the most expensive thing on the menu? That's what he's going to lean towards. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. That's a really good one. I like that a lot. I would add to this, just start noticing when you're assessing, and recognize that when you're assessing someone, there's a really good chance you're assuming at the same time. Are you really experiencing that person, or are you really analyzing them? The awareness that maybe you're assessing can really change how you approach somebody in the moment. Because assessing someone is on the basis of your preconceived notions, usually.
Mm-hmm.
If you are assessing what you're hearing on the basis of what your values are and what you are seeing in theirs, right? And you know those don't necessarily align, I think you can trust that, right? But that's only going to come from experiencing the person rather than filtering every single thing. Because the danger is you can either overemphasize something because you have a preconceived notion, miss something because you're not paying attention, and then find yourself somewhere down the line confused or disappointed or something like that, that a person just keeps showing up the way they are when maybe from the very beginning you were assessing them more than experiencing them. One of my favorite things I've said to people that I'm very close to and friends and in the past people I've been dating, there are two of us here. Right? There's two of us in this conversation. There's two of us in this dynamic. There's two of us in this friendship, which means there's somewhere where we start and stop. Somewhere there's a space between us, right? That where we start and stop. And the question is, how well can we connect over that space, right? And does it have to be on everything? I don't think it does. The things you can connect over probably need to be around some very shared important things. But the only way you're going to find that is if you're experiencing somebody. And the only way that's going to happen is if you let them be them and don't put them in a position where they have to perform.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Well, it's really true. Like relationships are about evolving, and a relationship, like you said, is two people. There's two people creating the relationship or the friendship or whatever it is.
Yep.
And both people are active, and both people come to the table with that curiosity of not trying to find like a perfect match, but having the willingness to adapt and grow. And I mean, in my mind, like what comes to mind is some of my closest friends that I have are people that I got to know, and I have just grown to really love them as people, and they've had their ups and their downs, and I've seen them in different phases of their life. And I've always just wanted to be that constant supporter, their pet rock, so to speak, but like the constant for them, that no matter what is going on, I'm here and I'm going to love you and support you for it. And I think that's such a great, healthy way to start anything. Really.
Absolutely.
Is just that pure consent of like, I am here and this is me and I have my palms open and I am showing me and I would like to get to know you. But can you put down your list and your walls and all the things and just show up and have fun? Yeah.
And stay in the space, right? Show up in that space and not have to have everything prepared, not to have everything analyzed, not to have everything. And I should stress too, we are talking about two people doing this, right? It does take two people, right? Yeah. Willing to do this, to show up intentionally the way you're talking about. I think that matters a lot. That's the only place where mutual growth really happens. It's all co-created, right? It has to be co-created if it's going to be doing anything. Another thing I would do, and I've said this word many times on this show, alignment matters. We talk about alignment of being aligned with your own values and what is it that you prioritize in your life. How is that affecting your behavior and how you're showing up? That internal alignment matters a lot. But when it comes to adding other people in, I think alignment can turn into kind of a coded language. I think a lot of people seem to mean alignment means this person is my ideal match, when really what alignment should be is how willing are they to grow alongside you? How willing are they to adapt, to listen, to take seriously if you perceive something? Is this, I'm perceiving this and this coming from you. Is this true? A willingness to take a good look at themselves, right? Those things matter a lot. And then asking ourselves, is this a person I want to keep doing this with? And really, in any relationship, it really comes down to making that decision each day.
Yes.
Whether you're just meeting somebody and you're in the first week of getting to know them, or if you've been married for 40 years, it's still, or at least it should be, you're still waking up and choosing this each day. And I would think that we would probably appreciate all the relationships we have of whatever duration we've had them a lot more if we didn't assume that everything was just going to keep going the way it's been, because we have to keep then showing up every day with that intentional choice to be in that spot, not just with that other person, but also with ourselves and making the choices that come with it. I think a lot of marriages would last a lot longer if people actually said, I'm going to wake up each day and really choose this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
1,000%. I mean,
Instead of
that's
just falling back on, well,
why,
we did the
yeah,
vows,
they're
right?
like, yeah, we took the vows and now we're hitched. So now we're stuck. And
It's all good. Right.
You're going to take me however I grow.
Right.
But there's been instances recently that I have been in where I am around multiple people. So a lot of times it's at work, and I observe, and if there's ever like some downtime or whatnot, everyone always goes to their phone. Always. Without fail. Always.
Yep.
And part of me has wondered, if we did not have cell phones and Apple Watches and all these, the internet and all these prompts, what would happen? What kind of conversations would transpire between these groups of people that I see?
Oh.
Would they bring books to read because they're like, hey, I want to still be doing something that doesn't involve interaction with others? Sometimes if you're in a highly interactive place, sometimes you need a break away. And so even talking to coworkers or teammates or whatnot can feel like, okay, too much, I need a break. But if they didn't have all this distraction and stimulus, like what would come out of that?
Yeah.
I can just imagine. And part of me is, again, that's where I'm like, I get a little sad, because I think we are losing so much opportunity. It is flying past you all the time, and you wouldn't know it because you're too busy looking at a screen, being disappointed that you don't measure up to what you're looking at,
Right.
or in your mind, you're making these false narratives of what you think is the standard of beauty or what your partner should be doing. And God forbid they don't do that. So now we need to dump them because the internet's telling me that, this is not okay. Or, somebody else's life is so much better than mine. And it's like, you're not getting anything great usually.
Right.
Or you're reading the news, which that's all awful. Unless you're watching like little monkey punch videos, I really don't think that there's not a lot in there that's great and healthy.
Well, no, that's very true. And I think the other side of it is, when you're experiencing life, so many times people are too busy recording it on their phones to contribute to said, platforms, that they're missing it. Not too long ago, a few weeks ago, was the Masters golf tournament in Augusta, Georgia, right? One of the biggest golf tournaments of the year. And I don't know if you saw this, but they banned cell phones.
Oh, I didn't see that.
From the people who go out, all the people who, it's a tough ticket. You have to get in a lottery and get chosen to even have the right to buy tickets. And when you get there, you cannot take your cell phone out onto the course.
That's brilliant.
And so what you had, of course, was something that, for me as a sports fan going back a long ways now, I remember when people were watching sports and not taking pictures all the time and were experiencing the moments. And what has happened? They experience these moments as big moments of their lives. They remember where they were when they saw something happen, right? I remember going to see the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics play in the Great Western Forum in LA back in the glory days of Magic Johnson on the Lakers with Kareem and all them, and Larry Bird on the Celtics. And that was the biggest rivalry maybe in all of sports. And I remember so much of that game. And it was in the 1980s, because I wasn't sitting there trying to record anything. I was present, right? Those things. I think that kind of thing just shows what would happen. You said, what would happen if we did? You'd actually be there in the moment, and it would be memorable, and it would be connected, and you would have this shared experience with the people around you, rather than condensing every single thing down to what you can get on your phone. So anyway, woo.
That was a good one.
It was. Hopefully, I think I got a lot out of this, Ashley, besides me being a pet rock. That's the fourth time I mentioned it.
I know.
Clearly, it stuck with me.
Clearly, you like it.
There's something about it that's taking with. I'm going to start getting called pet rock now. Just listen. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of Staying Power. And in particular, we also want to make sure that we thank our sponsor, Pars Revive Renovation, for their support of this show. They do wonderful restorations, whether you're talking about a kitchen, bathroom, living area, whole houses. Pars Revive Renovation in Bellevue. They service the whole east side here in Seattle, as well as the larger Puget Sound. Check them out at parsrenovation.com. That's PARS renovation.com, and see what they can do to match your vision. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this show. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ashley, for everything you contributed. Thank you so much to all of you for listening. We will be back next week with another episode on How You Can Build a Better Life. I'm JDK Winnikin.
I'm Ashley Knievel.
And we will see you next week.